Hi guys, Ready Set RC back again today, and today we are doing our final thoughts of the Losi Super Baja Rey. We've done the unboxing of this truck, taken it out on a few runs, and now we're just going to give you our final thoughts of this truck. Basically just giving you a review of what we thought this truck has done. And in our typical fashion, we're going to do the 8-point review setup that we've aligned now. So we're going to be talking about the electronics, the drivetrain, handling and suspension, durability, workability, support, is it worth it, and finally, would I buy this again, which is totally an opinionated part of this discussion. So guys, let's dive right into it. And in regards to electronics, let's touch on the radio controller. So the radio controller for this kit is your typical DX2E that they've been releasing with a lot of their higher end vehicles. And this is the one with the high, medium, and low settings that are on here up at the top. Allows you to dial down the throttle control on this vehicle. All of them still have the typical AVC over here on the side. But this new setting that is on the higher end vehicles, I think the first one that I had with this setting on here was the Losi LST 3XLE. So this is another one of those offerings that has the high, medium, and low setting on here. Great quick change, especially if you want to give this truck to a more inexperienced driver. Definitely something that you want to change over before giving them a vehicle with this much power. So just touching on the ESC for this vehicle, I found no issues whatsoever with the ESC. Temperature settings on here was excellent, no cutting out, excellent for this vehicle. More than enough power was able to exert out onto this vehicle. And we ran this vehicle, just so you guys are fully aware, we only ran this on 6S. That is two 3S batteries. I variated between the C ratings on there. I think when we first ran this vehicle, we may have ran it on 50C batteries, and then we elevated up to our 75C batteries on here. Excellent for this truck. I would not run this thing on 4S at all. I know some people are even more insane and are trying to run this on 8S. Would not advise it. More than enough power for this offering on 6S. Next, let's touch on the motor. Excellent. Once again, no issues with heating on this truck. Motor was perfect for this. Just enough power for this truck on everything. As I said, guys, I'm not going to touch on the specifics of the ESC, the motor, the servo. All those things, you guys can see the specifics of it in my unboxing video. Really, I'm just talking on the review and how I felt that these things performed on this truck. Let's move on to the servo. Moves the tires perfectly. This vehicle is dialed in perfectly with this servo. I know a lot of guys out there are always saying how, they want a faster servo for their kit. I thought it was fast enough for this. And my thoughts is that once that back starts to go out from you, and if you're having a servo that's way too fast for the vehicle, causes a little bit issues in regards to stability. So you got to dial that in, or you have to take that into consideration when you're swapping in and out servos on kits. And I just feel that the servo that's in here, more than enough power in regards to the mixture of the ESC, the motor, and the way this vehicle performs all together, that this servo was perfect for this truck. Lastly, let's talk about the receiver. And with the receiver, I found there were no issues with the receiver on this truck. I did not lose signal at all with this. I felt it performed perfectly under the conditions I drive this vehicle in. As I said, the vehicle did not cut out. It performed well with the receiver on this truck. Next, let's move on to drivetrain in reference to the front, center, and rear differentials, and also the drive shafts in the front and the rear axle. Did not have any issues, guys. I'm going to tell you, I did not break any drive shafts on this vehicle. I did not have any enormous amount of bleeding going to the front or to the rear. It was perfect. Had no issues in regards to the drivetrain of this vehicle. What I will say is that between the Super Baja Rey and the Baja Rey, I have noticed that even the torque twist that I was getting on the Baja Rey completely eliminated with the increase of the size of the Super Baja Rey. I had zero torque twist on this truck, none. This performed perfectly in the conditions I drove this truck in. And that is a perfect segue to move into our next discussion, which is handling and suspension. How did I feel this vehicle handled? And I thought it handled very well. The only thing that I will say, and a lot of people are probably looking for on this truck, is that it does not have the scale looks when it does drive. It drives more like a basher. From what I saw with this truck, I will say, suspension wise, the travel was excellent. No issues with the travel. The shocks that are in here are a little stiff, and that is basically because of the fluid that's being used in here. And that's where I get into where the scalability of this truck. So where you get to the point where you want to see those soft, plush movements, it doesn't quite give that to you because there's a stiffer weight of shock fluid in this vehicle. Now, if you change the shock fluid, out of this and put a softer shock fluid, will it give you that travel and soften up the springs a little bit? Yes, but I think because of the weight, you're going to get a lot of sagging at that point. So you got to compromise a little bit on this. And, if you're going to want to bash this hard, which I think a lot of guys are going to want to do with this, you got to basically compromise that you're going to have a stiffer suspension on this vehicle. And that's exactly what it is. It is a stiffer suspension. But the way that this truck performs, you want it stiffer. You do not want that soft plus suspension and that travel on this truck. I think this was perfect. Perfect for me, at least. Perfect for the way that I drive and the conditions that I drove in, and I thought it was. So durability, guys. Durability on this truck is the next segment we want to touch on. I'm going to touch on the durability and probably stick on this for a little bit. Out the gate when we got this truck, the big issue, and if you guys watch my unboxing video, and what I'll probably do, guys, is I'll probably put a card somewhere around here on the screen so you guys can watch the unboxing video of this truck. So the screws were over torqued. That was one issue that we had on this. The other thing that we had an issue on here was the upper links support. We broke that on a crash. I would have to say the temperature was probably somewhere in the ballpark of 40 degrees, close to 40. And what I mean by close to 40 was maybe 38 degrees day that we broke the part. And it was somewhat of a somersault going on the truck and snapped it. Have I done that kind of flip before on other vehicles? Yes. Maybe not a vehicle that has this much weight in the rear, but definitely I've done that with my monster trucks and everything in that kind of temperature and have not had any kind of brakes whatsoever. So just take it for what it is that we did have a brake on that upper support mount here in the rear. That part is not part of the axle. It is a separate part that mounts onto the axle. Very cheap to break. Actually, if I was going to say I wanted a weak point on this truck, I wouldn't mind that was one of the weak points because it was a very simple and cheap part to replace. Now, the problem I have with that cheap part being replaced is that Horizon Hobby does not sell that part by itself. It sells it with the axle housing. I would prefer that they sell that part, the upper support link on there, by itself. I do not need to buy a whole new axle housing, which is what I had to do to get that one simple part. Now, a lot of you would probably say, hey, I would just swap that out to metal. But guess what? Once I swap that out to metal, now what am I forcing to now put that kind of load on? Am I putting that load on the axle, which is one part I don't want to do the work on. Now, am I putting that weight back onto the upper links towards the chassis? Now, am I putting that stress in that part of the body? Do I want to deal with that when it takes 12 screws to remove this body off? If this is going to be my weak point, I can deal with that because it was very simple to change that out. Very easy, very simple, very little work to be done. So I would prefer that this little support up here is my weak point, rather than it being the axle or some other part of the vehicle that I would have to do more work on. The wing nut that supports the rear tire. Pretty much on my first run, I landed on the rear end, and on that part of the truck, it bounced out, totally just disconnected itself from the rest of the frame of the body, and the nut in there just dislodged itself. Yes, I was able to find the nut, but you can't, since that nut is loose, you can't attach that wing nut on properly. What I ended up doing going forward is just putting a nut in a washer, seals it right back in place, looks good again. I know you guys will probably see on a couple of my runs that I didn't have the rear tire on. That is why. It's because I didn't have, at the time, a solution to replace the wing nut, and the wing nut was already broken at that point. So that was another issue that I had with this truck. Did crack a portion of the body here. Actually I will say this is the only area on the entire truck that we cracked on the truck. Nowhere else. In regards to body rubbing, there was some slight body rubbings up in the front. I know you guys are probably seeing this in the rear. I was actually testing out something while you see this. I wanted to see if I rub this paint out, because I was trying to think of one or two ways of addressing some of the scaleism of this body, and one of the ways I was thinking of is just clearing the paint completely on this body and replacing it with my own design. So I was doing some testing out here on the rear, so that's why you see that's clear. But there's no rubbing in this section. This is all done by me and using a little bit of nail polish remover to get this off. I wanted to see what it looked like. Outside of that, guys, the body held up very well. You know, as I said, this one little section here was the only area that we had a crack. And as for rubbing, the only rubbings that I had was in the inner wells of each side of the car. And that's mainly when the tires start to balloon a little bit. It does rub a little bit in the body, in the front, and that's what gave me a little bit of rubbing in the front. But outside of that, the body held up very well. So durability on this truck has been pretty decent. As I said, breakages wise, this is it. This is the only break I had, and that was under some duress in temperature and the way I crashed. And you can see the running video of that as well. And one other part to touch on too, guys, in regards to durability, minor, but when we ran this on our last run, so much power going to this truck, especially when we were running with the 75C batteries, the 3S 75C batteries, that the tires actually blew off the rims on a couple of the tires on the truck. Very simple fix, just glue them back, clean them up, glue them back on, and good to go. But that was the other thing that I wanted to make sure that you guys were fully aware of, is that we did blow the tires off the rims on a couple of the tires on the truck. So workability. Is this truck easy to work on? And I must say, for the design of this truck and what it goes into to build a truck like this, is it easy to get to your electronics and get to other areas. 12 screws to remove. I've seen videos where guys are removing screws here and here, and I do a tips video where I tell you that does not need to be done. So definitely, guys, I'll post it up here on another card right here showing you my tips video, which touches on what screws need to be removed to get to access to the electronics in the truck. 12 screws, not these screws here, not these screws here, not the screws anywhere else. 12 screws to get to the body. But somebody at Losi had the genius idea of putting a screw behind here. And I'll try to zoom in on that too, guys. Somebody at Losi had the genius idea to put a screw behind here. And I'm gonna tell you, and anybody who owns the Super Baja Rey knows that that being one of the 12 screws and having to remove is a pain in the butt to get to. And the only way to get to that screw properly is to remove 1, 2, 3, 4. I take the entire thing off. So you're talking about 12 more screws to get to these 2 screws that are back here. Pain in the butt. You probably can work some way in, finagling something a little bit better, maybe putting a body pin there, something else there. I deal with the pain of removing the entire center body off, to get to 2 screws. And this is not something you run into on the Baja Rey, but it is clearly something different on the Super Baja Rey. The design of the cab section of this truck leads you to have to remove this center body panel off to get to 2 screws, the one here and the one on the other side. That, I say, is a big pain in the butt. Outside of that, just to get the cage off, as I said, it's 12 screws. That's it, 12 screws. But these screws here force you to do that. Now, is there a way to get around it? Probably so. I think if you design something a little bit better, you probably could get away with doing something a little bit better than that. And I read a couple guys, or if you just notch out the body here a little bit. And these are things that I may do in the future, who knows, but if you notch out the body a little bit here, you could probably get to this a little bit easier. And that's as I see how much I have to work on this truck, I'll probably end up doing that. But for right now, I've left it the way it is so I can do this review for you guys. But workability, 12 screws. After that, it turns into a regular RC. Everything's exposed. You got your motor, your motor is right here, your ESC is right here, your servo is right here. Nothing is exposed, is hidden behind anything. I found the battery tray, and just to touch on that too, I found the battery tray very easy to access, held a variety size of batteries in here. As I said, I run 2 packs, 2 3S packs in here, soft packs, no issues whatsoever. So support-wise, and this is where I'm going to touch on the issue that I had with my screws. So as I've noted in my unboxing and in my follow-ups to videos afterwards, that I had a problem with the screws that were on this truck. They were over-torqued, and for those that do not understand what I mean by over-torqued, they were jammed into the plastic way tighter than they needed to be. And regardless of what bits you used, you were damaging the screws to get them out. You either had to drill the screws out or basically just destroy the screws and replace them. I reached out to Losi, worked with one individual there, great support. I mean, this guy went above and beyond in regards to handling my issues. He basically had me go through the 3D rendering of the truck. I showed him what screws I needed and immediately sent me packs of screws, not 1s and 2s, packs of screws for this truck. I had the way that Horizon Hobby supports their vehicles, I had no issues with their support. They hop on top of their vehicles and they address the issue head on. No problems whatsoever. Great support from Horizon Hobby. So this part of the segment, guys, do I think this vehicle is a value at its price point? At the $799 price point, I have to say this vehicle is a value, but it's not the price I would put towards this vehicle, and let me explain why. Trying to compare this to anything else in the market, there's not really much or anything I would really compare this vehicle to. It is a 1/6 scale vehicle. It is definitely a larger vehicle than most of the vehicles that are similar to this. There's a ton of power in this vehicle, a lot of beefy parts that are in this vehicle, so it's very hard to compare this to. I would have to compare it to the Baja Rey. And if you look at the Baja Rey at the time of this video, I think it's going for right now $449, let's say just $450. This is going for $799. Basically, you're looking at the two vehicles and you're saying to yourself, there's a $350 markup to making this a 1/6 scale versus the 1/10 scale. Is that a true value at that point? I don't know. My thoughts are I would like to see this truck, and this is like any other consumer. $699 would probably be the best price that I would like to see this. I'd like to see this come down maybe another $100. $699 would be a nice. $799. It's a little pricey. Would I do it again? Of course. I love this truck. I love how this truck performed. I like how this truck reacted to the way I drive this truck. I like it for the situations that I'm able to put this truck in. Perfect driving conditions for me with this truck. I love it. I would spend the $799 on this truck, but I would love to see it come down to about, $699. I think this thing wouldn't even stay on the shelves if it was priced at around $699. And I'm hoping that Losi at some point adjusts the pricing with this, similar to what they have done with the LST and some of their other trucks. I'd love to see this around $699. I think that'd be a screaming price for this truck. But at $799, I would still pay. At $799, I still would pay $799 for this. Now we get to the opinion part of this video. And do I feel that this vehicle is a worthy buy for me? Again. And I have to say yes. For what you get in this truck. So basically, this is a 1/6 scale trophy truck. The innovation that goes into this, the thrill of driving this vehicle, the power that's in this truck, what they give you, I feel that this is a great buy. I really did enjoy driving this truck. This truck is staying in my selection for as long as I'm going to be in this hobby. This is staying in my collection. I really do enjoy this truck. This truck was so much fun. The abilities that it does, the capability of jumping, the success power that you could put into this truck. It's wonderful. And for me, I felt that this truck was by far a great deal of improvement to the Baja Rey. The size of it definitely corrects some of the functionalities of the Baja Rey. And I'll be honest, I'm gonna put it out there. The Baja Rey is probably my most favorite truck. And with this, it definitely improved on it. Now, will I say that this turns into my favorite truck just because it's a bigger version of the Baja Rey? Probably not. And the reason for that is that with this size comes questionable areas that you can run it. It is a large truck, and you can't just take it to small venues thinking that you can have the same fun that you have with the Baja Rey. And that's where I like the Baja Rey a lot more than this truck. Is because I can take the Baja Rey to smaller venues and enjoy it just as much as I do with this truck. The only thing that I have, or only knock I have with this truck, is that I do not have too many large areas I can drive it, and because of that, I can't take it out as often as I can take out the Baja Rey. But I feel that this is a very close comparisons to the Baja Rey to me. I really do enjoy how this truck performs. It's just a wonderful truck to drive. And if you guys are on that crossroad, or if you should buy it or if you shouldn't buy it. It's worth it. It is definitely a nice truck. It is one of those that you'll definitely say at the end of the day that you do not regret the purchase of this truck. But that's it, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for our latest posts to our channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.